Hello and welcome to the Rewrite Your History 2.0 Summit. And today I am really excited to share with you some very interesting work that's called inner body work. And first time I've ever actually heard this kind of work. So I was super excited to come across this as I was researching the kind of speakers that I would love to have in this summit to bring you the best tools and techniques that will create more courage in your life to overcome those things that are limiting you from living a life that you desire. So I'm going to just introduce to you today Stel Fine. MA is a certified inner bonding facilitator with a master's degree in spiritual psychology. Her varied background in psychotherapy, education, nonprofits, and entertainment reveals a common theme of helping people honor their life paths and choices and empowering them to become the hero in their lives. She creates a safe and supportive space for people while inspiring them to open to their truth and feelings with compassion, patience, and creativity. Her life purpose is to help people learn how to stop causing themselves needless suffering and restriction, freeing them up to become loving, whole, and fulfilled. Stel is also the Director of Expansion and Co-Director of Training at Inner Bonding Educational Technology, Inc. You can find out more about Stel at stelfine.net. So let me personally welcome you, Stel, and thank you so much for being on this summit.
Thank you, Susan. I'm very excited. I think inner bonding is one of the most amazing techniques ever created, and I'm very happy to share about it with people and let them know that this technology exists and they don't have to just be suffering.
So where are you at in the world?
I'm in Denver, and it was like 80 degrees yesterday, and then today it snowed. So
sounds like Montana.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to have our audience just learn about what inner bonding is. So could you share more about the work of inner bonding? Before we go into that, how did you come to know about this work?
Well, I got my master's degree in spiritual psychology at the University of Santa Monica, and I started to work with a coach. And when I mentioned that I had a few different kinds of trauma in my past, she recommended that I work with an inner bonding facilitator because inner bonding does so many things to create safety inside. And so I started working with an inner bonding facilitator, and she, after a little while working with her, she's like, you should do this. And she said, you're like the poster child for why this works. Because I had a very, very harsh inner critic. Mm-hmm. And with the help of inner bonding, we learn to resource our strength from the kinder, gentler, more compassionate parts of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so my inner critic had always beaten me every time. Mm-hmm. And even though I had a master's degree in spiritual psychology and I learned all kinds of different techniques there, the power balance inside of me didn't shift until I cultivated a loving consciousness. My conscious self had to choose patience, had to choose unconditional acceptance. And that's what finally created a foundation that was kind and accepting and put learning to be loving to myself and others before any of the accomplishments or qualities that my inner critic, which in inner bonding we call the wounded self, mm-hmm. It's sort of like I flipped the power structure inside, which is necessary if you want to be happy and whole and connected.
Okay. What was going on in your life that had you begin looking or seeking this kind of work?
Well, like I mentioned, I had some different traumas in my past, and one of them, the one that's most dramatic that not everybody has, is I slipped and I fell 40 feet off of a waterfall
Wow.
when I was
Oh my
20.
gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I did a lot of damage to my body, but most of it was internal. I mean, I have some scars and things, but you can't see it because it's in my abdomen area. But I was really in a high point in my life when that happened. I had done a huge project at Northwestern University. I did a one-person show that I wrote and starred in, and it was a big success. And right after that is when I fell.
Wow.
And so because I already had what I would call a punishing consciousness from just the way I grew up and my family, I judged that incident where I actually almost died. I came very close to dying because there was internal bleeding, and I had ruptured the artery to my kidney, which no longer functions. It was a big deal. Broke ribs, punctured and collapsed my lung, fractured my skull. I have a TBI, all that stuff. So but here's the really crushing thing that occurred is that I interpreted this event as pride goeth before a fall.
Ooh.
And that was the most damning thing about the whole thing, because I recovered physically fairly quickly. Thank goodness I've always been in pretty good physical health. So I bounced back pretty quickly. But my inner critic went from bad to hyper vigilant. You can never make a mistake again. Because I don't know how I fell. I was at the edge of the waterfall. I don't remember it. I imagine I slipped on some mossy rocks, but my inner critic went into hyperdrive. Because, and now if it's okay with you, I'm going to go into a little bit of the inner bonding principles, just because it's.
And could you talk, because I'm sure most people know what inner critic means, but could you just share a little bit real quick about what inner critic is?
Thank you. Yes, I would love to.
And then I'd love to hear more about inner bonding.
Sure. So what I call our inner critic, which some people call our ego, which is not the Freudian version of ego, but like in inner bonding, we call it the wounded self. It's the little voice in our head that is telling us, you're not good enough. You're doing it wrong. They're not going to like you. You're going to be late. You're going to mess it up. You have to do X. So it's the part of us that's pushing us to accomplish something. Only it doesn't realize that the amount of pressure and the messaging that it's saying to motivate us to do these things is actually harmful. Actually, it cuts us off at the knees. It just pulls the rug right out from under us.
Right.
And so I think many, many people have a very active voice in their head that's not particularly kind to them, or is instilling a lot of fear about life, other people, men, women, the government, you name it. Mm-hmm. And here's the beautiful thing that I discovered through inner bonding. It's just one of the principles of inner bonding that I hadn't really run into anywhere else. And that is this voice, as mean as it might get, and mine was very mean, very harsh. If it's saying, you're not good enough, you're not going to get what you want, don't even try, which just feels terrible. I mean, if you can imagine telling, and you have a young daughter, so if you can imagine telling a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, you're never going to get what you want, you're not good enough, you might as well pack it in. She's going to be terrified, crushed, so upset. So we need to look at, why is the wounded self doing this?
Yeah.
It's doing this because it wants to keep you down under the radar so no one else can shoot at you.
Mm.
Because
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
as painful as it is to hear it from ourselves that we're not good enough or whatever, if we heard this, and we did, from our parents and caretakers and sometimes older siblings growing up,
Right.
it was so much worse to hear it from the people who you love,
Yeah.
who you think love you,
Yeah.
and it takes us by surprise when they do it.
Mm-hmm.
So very young, this kind of almost unconscious part of us kind of rose to the occasion and said, I'm not going to let you be obliterated like that time and time again. I'm going to protect you.
Yeah.
And the way I'm going to protect you is I'm going to tell you the same things so that it doesn't catch you by surprise and it doesn't just take you out from the side.
Yeah.
You're going to expect it, and then you won't be surprised, because human beings need to have some sense of control, whether it's actual or not.
Yeah.
And so having that control, being able to tell ourselves, well, you shouldn't expect this, or don't expect that, or you can't have this, or you don't deserve that,
Yeah.
means that we power down, we protect. And it works brilliantly when we are in whatever our childhood situation was, whatever the unkindness or criticism or actual abuse might have been happening.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's sort of like it's preparing us for a future that doesn't necessarily have to be that way, and usually isn't.
Right.
So it's sort of like one of the analogies that I have used before is, if a rocket, when it's leaving the ground, it takes tremendous power. That's where the most energy is expended to get it even this far off the ground, and then this far. And the further out of our Earth's orbit it gets, the less energy it takes. So let's call this engine, this thruster, booster. It's called a booster. Let's call that the wounded self.
Okay.
To get it out of the gravity of that childhood circumstance, messaging, it needs a lot of power. So it gives us this message over and over again. But then when it gets out of the orbit, in a real spaceship, the booster falls off. And the rocket is powered by its upper engines, which is our higher knowing, our intuition, our sense of what's good and right. And then we can get to where we're supposed to go as a spaceship. But if the wounded self is holding on and doesn't let go, it's going to pull you off your trajectory of having the life it intended you to have, protected, in control, etc.
Yeah.
So the challenge is to disconnect this part from having power over us.
Okay.
But we're not going to be mean to it. We're not going to judge it as wrong or bad. It was doing the best it could to help us not be in pain.
Yeah.
So, and because it came into our consciousness at 3, 4, 5 years old, it's really a young part of us that just has a very limited repertoire. It just goes in a loop and it doesn't have any other capability. So the challenge is to develop a strong, what we call in inner bonding, a strong, loving adult. That's the you and me who are talking right now. That's our conscious self. And this loving adult self has compassion, acceptance, unconditional love, or actually doesn't have it, cultivates it. For what we call our inner child. And there's a lot of inner child work out there. That part of inner bonding is not new. the combination of wounded self, adult self, inner child, and what we call guidance, which is our higher knowing, our intuition. For people who are religious or spiritual, it could be straight up God. For people who don't believe in that, it's just their own wisest, best, most connected, loving source.
Yeah.
So with these four parts, it's the job of the adult self to step in when the wounded self starts to do its very cruel dance.
Yeah.
And another analogy is sort of like if the inner child is like a little girl or boy in elementary school in recess out on the playground,
Mm-hmm.
and most everyone else has gone inside, but the bully comes out and starts to pick on him or her. You need an adult, you need that teacher to come out and say, whoa, no, that's not okay. Back off. And that's what the loving adult starts to do. It steps in and says, you know what? Not only is that not necessary and mean, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The only thing that is going to work is for us to find out what's the loving thing to do in the situation.
Okay.
So that was probably kind of a long version of.
No, that was greatly explained, and I think people can resonate with what you shared, especially with the analogy. And what I loved about it too was, which brings me into the flow of you getting ready to talk about the inner body work, is
it's actually called inner bonding.
Past. Yeah.
What?
How it's all linked to our past.
Yes.
You know, because you covered that our past are just old programs from our childhood. And so now we get to get into the inner bonding. I keep saying body, don't I? I apologize.
Well, it has a lot to do with the body. It does.
It does, yeah. So awesome. So the next, let's go ahead and let you share more about inner bonding.
Sure. And since we mentioned the body, let me just say that there's this beautiful book that Bessel van der Kolk, MD, wrote called The Body Keeps the Score. Ooh. And it is about, it's brilliant, and it's got lots of different resources in it and lots of different explanations and examples. But what he's basically saying, which is what I've also found is true, is that our body, in our cells, are our unresolved experiences. Mm-hmm. Whether they were what most people would consider to be trauma, or whether they are more conditional trauma, which is low-level trauma that happens over and over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So the body learns to contract and get into this defensive position, which is a parallel to the wounded self's desire to protect us that gets us in a defensive mental and emotional position. So the way that we resolve our past and free ourselves from the behaviors and the limiting beliefs of the past are to do the 6-step inner bonding process. Okay. So let me explain how that works. Okay. So step 1 is where we open to feeling our feelings. And so what that means is my conscious self chooses, I'm not going to run away from my pain. I'm going to face it. I'm going to hold it. Not to be, indulgent, but because in inner bonding, we call our feeling self our inner child. And she's having these feelings anyway, like in The Body Keeps the Score. It's in our cells anyway. Right. If we don't accept her feelings and care about them and have the courage and willingness to sit with her and hold her in my case, him too, whoever is working on it, then she's all alone with it, which is what she's been forever. And this, not forever, since our childhood. Yeah. So wherever 2 or more are gathered, healing is possible when there's compassion. So a lot of people are very afraid to feel their feelings because they think, if I take the lid off, I'm just going to be a mess. I'm going to fall apart. It's going to go on for weeks and days. But not if your conscious self is holding this part of you that's so precious, that's been hurt, and saying, I'm right here.
Yeah.
I got you. It's okay. I mean, it wasn't okay, but it's okay that you're feeling this, because I'm right here with you. Feel it all. Take as much space as you want. Because if we don't accept the pain and let our bodies feel it and process it, it can't release. It's stuck. Yeah. And then we're triggered right, left, and center by all kinds of things. And we think we're crazy or something because, someone flipped us a bird and we started crying, or something. But when we have the opportunity to be with the feelings, they discharge.
Got it.
But it's not just about having the feelings discharge. There's work to be done. Mm-hmm. So the work is that I, the adult self, take responsibility for whatever I am believing or doing or not doing that's causing this part, my feeling part, to be upset, anxious, hurt, angry, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So in step one, I feel my feelings, and I, as the adult, say, I'm taking responsibility for my part in causing these.
Yeah.
Step two is where we set the intention that the purpose of this session is to learn how to be loving to ourselves. And we let go of any other intention. We let go of fixing. We let go of manipulating. We let go of being attached to a certain result. Because in learning to be loving to ourselves is the only way that we'll really be open to the truth and to whatever healing is there. And then the second part of step two is where we invite our guidance to help us. Yeah. Again, whatever that is for someone. For my personal concept of my guidance is that it's a higher part of my soul that like a periscope out of the water. It can see things I can't see.
Right.
But it's that higher perspective that can see around the corners in our lives and knows what things we need to be prepared for and understand. Okay. So I avail myself of that wisdom. I say, please teach me how to be loving to myself. Please help me know what the truth is. And then step three is so fascinating and rich. Yeah. This is where we dialogue with our inner child and her feelings, and often with the wounded self. Not every time, but often. So the question that we ask are feelings. So let's say someone is upset because they're afraid of being rejected. So I would encourage them to ask their inner child, what am I telling you? Yeah. Or believing or doing or not doing that's making you feel afraid and anxious? And then she or he, as the case may be, would say, well, you're telling me that if I get into a relationship, it's going to end, it's not going to work out, I'm just going to be hurt again, so what's the point? Yeah. Or you're telling me I'm not attractive enough, or I'm not dynamic enough, or whatever all these things are. And that hurts me and makes me fearful and sad. So it's not something from the past that's repeating in real life. Right. It's a belief that we landed on as a safe space to hide in. Okay. That's coming up again and affecting our lives now. Okay. So the way we resolve things from the past is going to happen in the very next step, step 4. So, and I'll get there in 1 second. first I ask my inner child again and again, is there anything else that I'm doing or not doing? And she might say, and I'm thinking of a particular client in this case, she, whoever might say, well, you're not even putting me on Match.com. I mean, I want to meet people and you're not even letting me meet people because you're believing these false things. So
Yeah.
that's something I'm not doing if it were me in that
Uh-huh.
case. So is there anything else I'm doing or not doing
Okay.
or believing? So she in my case gets to empty. And that is really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the inner child doesn't have to hold on to anything. I'm willing to take it all on.
Yeah.
And so we can, at this point, either go straight to step 4, which I am going to do just to give you the example, or we could talk to the wounded self. So let's go to step 4, and I'm going to swing back around to the wounded self on this one.
Okay.
Step 4 is where we ask our guidance, whatever we conceive it to be, what's the truth about this? So what I like to do and remind my clients to do is before we ask guidance the truth, just let go of any attachment.
Yeah.
Our purpose here is just to learn how to be loving to ourselves. So we want to know what the truth is because it will set us free one way or the other. And guidance is also going to give us a loving action to take. So whatever the truth is, there's something we can do to be loving to ourselves.
Yeah.
So then we ask guidance, what's the truth about this? Is it true that if I get into a relationship and it's not going to work out and I'm just going to be hurt, so why bother? Is that true?
Yeah.
And then we have to be still and listen.
Mm.
Really, genuinely, authentically let go of our personal opinion and listen to the higher perspective one.
Yeah.
And so this is about a particular client. So I don't remember exactly what guidance said in that. Oh, I remember what it said. It said, it's not necessarily going to end, but what you need to do, the loving action is, you need to choose higher quality people from the get-go.
Nice.
People who are going to appreciate you and who are capable of owning their side of the street and discussing issues that come up with equanimity, and who have enough in common with you that they're going to enjoy walks in nature and this, that, and the other thing. So, and if it doesn't work out, you have enough ballast now, enough love and compassion for yourself that you'll be able to handle it. So that's an example of what would happen in step 4.
Yeah.
So then we'd say, what's the loving action? And guidance would say, well, sign up on Match.com. For instance, that's a loving action.
Yeah.
Tell yourself that you are someone people would want to be with for all these different reasons.
Yeah. And worthy of love.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the next step 5, is to take that action, whatever it is. And very often that doesn't happen in a session with a facilitator because it's often an action to take outside of the session.
Right.
But regardless, it's important to complete the process. Right. So you take the action, and then step 6 is you evaluate, how do I feel as a result of that action?
I love that. Yeah.
So if it's okay, can I swing back now to wounded self?
Yes. Okay. Yes, of course.
Okay, great. So in step 3, where we've dialogued with our inner child, and we have found out what we've been saying. So let's say that this person's wounded self / inner critic is saying, you're not attractive enough. You're not, it's not going to work out. You might as well just hang it up.
Yeah.
we can then get curious, because here's one of the other key things about inner bonding that is brilliant, is that at any time we have a choice of what our intention is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one or the other. Either we are in the intention to learn how to be loving to ourselves and others,
Mm-hmm.
or we're in the intention to protect, control, or avoid.
Got it. Wow.
So the adult self in now beginning to address the wounded self needs
Uh-huh.
to still be in the intention to learn, not to judge or condemn the wounded self.
Right, right.
And so the question is, what's your hope in telling me this? What are you trying to protect me from, really?
Yeah.
By saying you're not attractive enough, it's not going to work out, you're never going to get what you want.
Yeah.
You must have a very good reason why you're saying this.
Yeah.
What is it? And then the wounded self can answer. And
Mm-hmm.
each time we check in with another perspective, the wounded self, guidance, inner child, we really need to let them come out and speak.
Yeah.
Because each of those parts have more information than our conscious self can access.
Yeah.
We don't have to figure it out. In fact, we can't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go to the source because they know.
Yeah.
And so asking that question of the wounded self would probably say something like, I'm just trying to protect you from getting rejected, because that's what we faced in our childhood all the time. Even when we weren't doing something wrong, we
Yeah.
got slammed, criticized, blamed, judged, humiliated, shamed, etc., which
Right.
was intolerable. And now I'm stepping aside from the wounded self for a second to say it is intolerable for a
Yeah.
young person with a small body.
Mm-hmm.
Those feelings are explosive.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there isn't a parent or guardian who is compassionate and able to hold the actual you at that age who's got these big feelings,
Yeah.
and with their adult sized body regulate your emotions with you,
Right.
you've got to leave. You've got to dissociate. You've got to avoid the feelings. And that's why the wounded self comes into existence, to distract you, to get you the heck out
Oh,
of Dodge.
yeah. That's where addiction comes in.
That's where addiction comes in.
Yeah.
Yes, of
And,
all kinds.
and it's in many different forms, like addiction to stress or addiction to eating, or I could just imagine
Right.
the many forms that it would take on to protect and avoid. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes. Including the addiction to beating yourself up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people have that really strong, and it
Mhm.
feels powerful. It
Yeah.
feels good for the moment, but it decimates the inner child. And it really, these are people who usually are in a lot of deprivation.
Yeah.
Nothing's really working in their lives.
Yep.
They're
Lots
confused.
of diseases.
Lots of diseases.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. That's
So
powerful.
yeah, and so the wounded self knows that it doesn't have anything to bring to really healing. So the best it can do is avoid. And its
Right.
good
Right.
reason is you couldn't tolerate that feeling. So I
Mm.
got you out of there. I'm the hero here.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the beauty of inner bonding is that the adult gets to say, yes, you were.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
saved me. And like a can of Campbell's chicken soup from the 1960s,
Uh-huh.
you were healthy and nutritious for me then, and you are poison for me now.
Ooh, that's good.
So would you allow me to connect with my guidance and truly learn how to be loving to myself, how to
Yeah.
navigate every situation. Because you can't help it. You only have this limited repertoire that you learned that saved me then.
Right. Yeah.
But like the booster on the rocket, you need to let go. And I'm going to give you a beautiful retirement. We'll have a party. You can have a hammock to lay on. You know, if you don't want to be marginalized altogether and you want a job, I'll give you
Yeah.
another job. Here's a job. You know, would you like this job? Would you like to be able to say, I think danger might be approaching. I think you better hunker down with guidance in your inner child, because something's coming that, you know, that person just said something I don't like.
Mm.
Thank you. I will do that. And then I go huddle up
Yeah.
with the quarterback guidance and my, you know, wide receiver and,
Uh-huh.
you know, and all that. And
Wow.
so that, and then the thing is, we have to prove, the adult has to prove to the wounded self and the inner child that we will reliably show up, that we will
Yeah.
be present, that we will deal with these feelings, that we will have those tough conversations that our inner child wants us to have, that we will say no, that we will say thank you, but no thank you. The relationship this way doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I love that. So you're acknowledging the wounded self, the ego, or the negative thinking and all that,
Yes.
and guiding it to help you understand where it's coming from, and then work through that process. So you're just guiding people during this process, and they're really doing all the work, right?
Yes.
So that
They're
they
doing all the
can
work.
digest it and integrate it. And so today with the listeners or our audience, what is something that they could take away right now if they wanted to? Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. Maybe share some results that you've seen from some of your clients out of doing this work, and then maybe share some, or not maybe, but just share something with the audience that they could actually apply right now in their own lives, to get them into action today.
Okay. So if you don't mind, I'm going to answer that in the opposite order.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. No, yeah.
So the thing that you can do today, right now, in fact, is you can choose to learn to become loving to yourself, no matter how hard that is.
Yeah.
Even if you have no compassion for yourself at this time, choose to cultivate it. Because things in your life aren't really going to work to be satisfying and fulfilling and have peace and joy and gratitude unless you also are able to be accepting and loving of yourself.
Yeah.
So the most important thing to do is to make that choice. I choose learning to be loving to myself and others, which doesn't mean giving myself up for others.
Right.
It means learning what is really loving here. And the general rule is, if I'm doing something that's truly loving to myself, it will be loving to that other person. Even if what I'm telling them is, I don't want to have this relationship anymore.
Yeah.
Letting them go, because people don't really want to be nasty or mean or critical. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So that's a favor. So that's like a choice to make. The other practical tool would be to check out the 6 steps of inner bonding on the innerbonding.com.
I was going to say, what's an action that they could take? Well, there you go. Go check out the 6 steps. Okay.
Yes.
Finish that. Sorry.
Yes. And I meant to say, I don't think I said this yet, that inner bonding is an educational self-healing technique created by Dr. Margaret Paul and Dr. Erica Kopich.
Yeah.
And so their site, innerbonding.com, has tons of videos and articles and audios and examples of how to use the 6 steps of inner bonding. It is something people can learn to do for themselves.
Yeah.
And many people do. And many people choose to work with a facilitator instead. That, that's a turbo charge to learn it more quickly. And actually, that reminds me, one of my clients once said that she thinks inner bonding is the super highway of self-healing because you take responsibility. Whatever therapist or facilitator or coach a person works with, you don't want to have to wait for your appointment with them. You want to be able to work with what's coming out for you right then. And until we take responsibility and stop blaming and putting the responsibility on someone else, until we do that, we won't grow, really. That's the thing that unhooks the lid that we've been putting on ourselves and gives us so much freedom and so much ability to live our lives in a fulfilling manner. And you asked me another question, and I'm so sorry I forgot, because the answer that was wasn't this one.
What were some, like, maybe share with about a client where, I mean, you could share as many as you want, but maybe one or two that have results from this kind of work that you've got to personally see transpire from it.
Yes. Well, there are a few.
I
there are many, but there are a few.
Which one do I pick?
What? Which one do I pick?
Which one do I pick?
I'm not playing favorites here if any of you watch this. So one of my clients had a wounded self who was constantly causing her fear, like almost paranoia terror. Because it would say this isn't safe and that isn't safe, and it would go into all these catastrophic imaginings of things that could happen, which were just really paralyzing. And so it would have her do things to get away to avoid this feeling of being paralyzed that were detrimental to her, that actually were not good, and put her in some unsafe situations. And so we worked on it. We found out where that came from the past. There were real things that happened to her and her family in the past. So that being afraid and trying to anticipate every possible thing that could go wrong was a strength. But again, like that Campbell's soup, turns into absolutely toxic ways of thinking and behaving. So she came to recognize that this was a part of her. And this is why inner bonding is so brilliant. I'm so glad we got to this. Because we walk around thinking this isn't just me. I'm just this way. I'm self-critical. I'm afraid. I'm all that stuff, which traps us. What inner bonding does, it says, no, not really. This part is doing this. This part can choose to do this instead. So it peels off that crust. It takes the mud that's caked on the diamond, and you can just wash it right off.
Nice. Oh.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And in an authentic way, not in a, just move past it. Like, people with trauma can't just move past it. They have to resolve it. And so she came to learn that when her adult self would show up and ask the wounded self, why are you so afraid? Why are you doing this? And just like I explained in the sample I gave you before, what's your purpose? What's your hope? What are you protecting me from? Then it can stand down. And then we can access our wisdom. And this particular client is just really connected to her wisdom. She gets clear information, a lot of it. And so, that's one person. Other people, an example, are they want to be in a relationship, and then they are able to disassemble their shield, their wounded self-protection, to be able to have a relationship. And I have a client like that. She didn't think she was ever going to get into a relationship. She had given up the idea of that. And she's been in a relationship now for 1.5 years, and they're making plans to live together and all kinds of stuff. And so the amount of suffering she went through in that instance, that we all do, that I did,
Yeah.
it's not true. It's not true anymore. And
It
it,
doesn't have that grip on you.
right.
Wow.
And we also sometimes in the step 3 part, facilitators will invite someone's loving adult to go back in time in their imagination to that moment when a trauma was occurring.
Yeah.
And to show up as what their actual self would have wanted an adult to do for them.
Beautiful.
And we do that, and that's reparative as well.
Yeah.
And it gives the client practice saying the thing, drawing the line in a loving way, and not just to obliterate whatever person might have been being cruel, but to hold their inner kid or put their inner kid behind them.
Yeah.
And take care of it, because that's now what we're doing in our current life. I'm taking care of it for her.
Nice.
And that's when we can connect and integrate our parts, and not have to dissociate, not have to go into a fugue state or forget things, but to be, I'm right here and I'm resourced by my higher self, my guidance.
Yeah.
So it's a team guidance.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we end?
I think I left dangling the falling off the cliff thing, so let me just kind of sew that up.
Yeah.
So I came out of that with an inner critic who would just beat me up all the time and tell me I was going to make a mistake. And so through inner bonding, I was able to show it, not just tell it, but show it. I will take care of this. I do a good job. Generally, I do a good job at everything. You don't have to worry. I'm going to double check it. I'm going to listen to my guidance, because I had an intuition about that trip that I took that I didn't fully listen to. And so now I get to tell my wounded self, I'm listening. I am a space of listening to my inner child and to my guidance. And so it has morphed so beautifully from an actual warrior with like a sword and knives and bows and arrows and stuff, to just kind of hanging out in my wounded self as a he, because it was patterned on males in my family. So whichever person in your past was giving you the same messaging that your wounded self gives you now, it's called an introject. So a woman may have a wounded self that's male or female, depending on if it was based on their mother, whatever. So mine is now, often a little playroom, just playing and having fun. And so relieved. This is the thing. The wounded self was never equipped to do this well in the first place. It just stepped in as a bridge. So when an actual responsibility and maturity and willingness to do what needs to be done steps forward, it can relax, because it's so exhausted.
Oh, I bet. Oh, yeah. I just, when you said that, I immediately could just have compassion for that wounded self immediately. Wow. That's beautiful.
And so when criticisms come up, because they don't go away 100%, they just get less and less and less and less and less and less and less. When it comes up now, I just say, thank you for trying to protect me. I got it. I'm on it. You don't have to worry. So it's a completely different experience of life for me now. And the beautiful thing that I do want to tell your listeners and viewers is, the more in balance you get, the more loving you become, and the more responsible you are for your own emotions and behaviors. Life is going to reflect to you. I don't know how it does this, but it's true that it does this. Life is going to bring in kinder people, more supportive people, more loving people, you're going to get opportunities that are more in line with what you really want to do.
Right.
So
That would make sense. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's everything's coming up roses, really.
We all love roses. I don't
Yes.
know anybody that doesn't.
Yes.
So bring on the roses.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh, that would be, yeah. I was just thinking, it would be great to actually have the listeners or viewers try on the 6-step process that Stel just shared, and all you got to do is hit reply to the email that you get and share which one did you pick, which wounded self or a limiting belief, and share what transpires from that for you. And like Stel just said, go to it's innerbonding.com, and Dr. Margaret Paul, you can find out more information with this particular process that Stel's sharing with us. And if you'd like to connect with Stel, how can they reach you?
Well, they can go to my website, stelfine.net, and there's a contact page, and they can fill something out there.
Okay.
And then also my professional Facebook page, they could go there.
Awesome.
That's Stel Fine
Okay.
Inner Bonding. And I am going to be providing to you the link to the document that Drs. Paul and Chopich created with all of the whole process in detail.
Oh, wow.
So,
awesome.
And that's something that they can just download. That's a freebie that Dr. Paul gives away to anyone who would like it, because she's
that's awesome.
excited about people breaking free.
Yeah, I know. And she's busy doing this work.
Oh,
and she
yes.
highly recommended Stel as someone to interview. So, and I reached out immediately. So I am just grateful for you, Stel, for having the time and coming on here and sharing the process, sharing your own life story and how it's benefited you and some of your clients. So I really appreciate that. And I acknowledge you for your courage and being vulnerable and a stand for what people are committed to in their own life, that they actually have that be possible for them.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. And it is totally possible.
It is totally
possible.
It is.
And
I
the
just got goosebumps.
Yeah, and the leverage to move that big stone, whatever that thing is that's been heavy for them to carry, is saying, I will feel this with you.
Yeah.
I will take care of it.
Yeah.
With help.
Delicious. All right. Well, I just want to say have a beautiful day to our audience, and I will see you guys tomorrow on the next interview.